Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular meeting of council for Monday, March 11th, 2024. If I could ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to members of council, staff, and the public. Call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, motion to accept the agenda. Councillor Massey.
Mayor, move by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accept the agenda of the regular meeting of council on Monday, March 11, 2024.
Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, moving on to adoption of the previous minutes. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the minutes of the following meeting be adopted and circulated. Regular meeting of council on Monday, February 26, 2024.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to add the going in camera. Okay, there is one addition, and that is we'll be proceeding in camera to discuss identifiable individuals. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. And we are going to delegation, so we'll start with just so you don't have to hang out for this whole meeting. Just like to do a little presentation for to Manolo Lone. It's an appreciation, token of our appreciation for, and has been named an honorary godmother to the Tim Hortons Dome on the night of the big storm. Had it not been for her messaging us, we'd have lost the dome completely. And yeah, she was quite forward. Get here now. Yes. So.
Direct.
Thank you. So much appreciated.
Well, I found that it's our duty as a community to do it. I mean, anybody should do it. And there was a loud noise, so I said, I gotta text somebody.
Thank you, Manon.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Tophia. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next delegation, Heritage Property, SDG Counties, Lindsay Parisian, Senior Planner. Welcome. Getting to be a regular here.
It's on, okay. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay, perfect. Okay, so good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, fellow staff, and members of the public. My name is Lindsay Parisia, and I'll be giving a brief update on the North Glengarry Heritage Properties designation process so far. So this slide is just a brief overview of what I'll be discussing with you this evening. First, I'll begin with a very quick recap of the Ontario Heritage Act and some of the recent changes that has been occurring as of late. Following this, we'll be looking at North Glengarry's current context, as well as reviewing the Heritage Register, as well as potential designations of properties on our current list. Following this, we'll look at some heritage incentive programs, as well as possible amendments to the Community Improvement Plan. And following this, we will end with next steps and progress to date. So as a quick recap of the Ontario Heritage Act, all municipalities within Ontario must maintain a heritage register of properties that are considered to be of cultural heritage value or interest. Buildings that are listed on this register are protected from demolition for a period of up to 60 days, while the municipality can consider a designation process, and that's if a landowner were to come forward for an application to demolish a specific building. Designated properties are identified by bylaw and sometimes they can require permits for alterations that affect the heritage attributes. And in some municipalities, heritage conservation districts are established, and what they are is they're geographically defined areas within a municipality that are noted for a distinct heritage character. And these areas are protected through bylaws and guidelines and often include a mix of properties. So as a summary of the recent changes of the Ontario Heritage Act, so as all of you are aware, the province has made significant changes to various legislation, one of which includes the Ontario Heritage Act. So some of the changes that have occurred is that all existing non-designated properties on the Heritage Register must be reviewed before a deadline of January 1st, 2025. The province has also created a new process for adding buildings onto the heritage property or onto the registry itself. And they've also applied a 2-year timeframe for any newly listed buildings to go through the designation process. And if they don't complete that process within 2 years, they must be removed from the register itself. In addition, designated properties must now meet at least 2 of the criteria in order to be considered eligible for designation, and all properties that are included on the list itself must meet at least 1 of the criteria. And for those municipalities that have a heritage conservation district, 25% of the properties must meet at least 2 of the criteria within that district itself. So this slide is a list of the criteria for designation. And as you can see from this list, there's generally 3 main categories that I guess you can consider. And this is a list in which all properties are reviewed against to determine their eligibility for designation. So as you can see, some of the criteria is related to the design value or the physical value of the building or property itself. The second category would be related to historical value or associated value. So this meaning that the property or building would have a direct association with either a specific person or belief or organization that is significant to the community. And then the third category is related to contextual value. So this meaning that the property could be historically linked to its surroundings, and in some cases it could be considered to be a landmark. So as mentioned before, what has changed in the province is that any property looking to be designated must have at least 2 of these criteria, and any property on the list itself must meet at least 1 of these criteria. So now looking at North Glengarry's current context. So currently there are 4 properties that have been designated within the municipality. And they include the Glengarry Pioneer Museum, the Kenyon Township Hall, the Old Mill, and the Grandstand. And currently there are 12 properties that are included on the Heritage Register that are not designated. This slide is a full list of the properties that are included on the non-designated Heritage Register, as you can see here. So this slide is a series of recommendations that were presented at the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee meeting in December of last year. And from this series of recommendations, a number of them have advanced from a staff perspective, some of which I will speak to a little bit in greater detail later in this presentation. So as a reminder, there are a number of incentives that municipalities may offer landowners that own heritage properties. One of the commonly used tools is the implementation of a community improvement plan. So currently, North Glengarry's community improvement plan applies to buildings that have been identified on the Glengarry Heritage Registry. However, because of the 2-year time frame in which a listed property may or may not be designated or it must be removed, the committee may wish to consider a requirement of a more formal designation in order for these properties to receive incentives. Alternatively, a separate heritage grant or tax refund program could be established. So for example, under Section 39 of the Ontario Heritage Act, allows municipalities to establish a grant or loan program, which allows for payment of the whole or part of a project or in the costs associated with the altering the designated property itself. And Section 365.2 of the Municipal Act also allows local municipalities to establish programs for tax reductions or refunds in respect of eligible heritage properties. So as an update for council, staff wanted to communicate the progress that has been made so far. So in February of this year, a staff meeting was held with myself and Anne. At the time, we reviewed the work plan, and at this time, it was decided that a phased approach would be beneficial in order to begin the heritage designation process on some properties, because some of the properties have had previous research that has been conducted, and we thought it would be beneficial to move forward with some of them versus having to wait for all of them to be researched all at once. So following this meeting, staff have drafted a notice of intent to designate that would be served to the property owners and advertised in the local newspaper. This draft notice was reviewed by the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee meeting last week. At the same meeting, we also reviewed various options and possible amendments to the community improvement plan for phase 3 of implementation. So following tonight's meeting, the next steps would be to finalize that notice of intent to designate, as well as meet with property owners regarding the heritage designation process. Assuming that property owners are still in favor of designating their buildings or properties themselves, we will then look for council's endorsement for the first phase of properties in order to begin that designation process itself. If we do receive that endorsement, we will then serve and advertise the public notice of intent to designate. During that time, staff will also prepare a draft bylaw for the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee to review. If no objections are filed against the notice of intent to designate, a formal heritage designation bylaw will then be prepared and considered at a future council meeting. Staff will continue to work with the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee, research the remaining properties on the non-designated heritage registry listing, as well as we will continue to review the CIP programs, as well as options and opportunities to make amendments and perhaps create a new heritage program. So in summary, we will work towards that given deadline of January 1st, 2025. And something important to note is that all properties on that list don't necessarily have to be designated by then. What does need to occur, though, is a notice of intent to designate does need to be identified on those properties itself by this given deadline. As mentioned, we will continue to work with the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee to potentially add more properties to the non-designated list itself. We'll review CIP tools and programs, and perhaps in the future we want to consider establishing a heritage conservation district for future years. So that concludes my presentation for you this evening, and Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay, for your presentation. Questions or comments? Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lindsay, thank you so much for all your work on this. Lindsay has been an incredible help to the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee as we maneuver through this process or whatever. It's fairly complex, as you can probably tell by what you just went through or whatever. But I think we're on the right track to getting some, if not all, of the ones that we have that we would like to designate, and not just the ones that are on that list. But there's some others too that we're looking at, like the Grotto, which has not been designated or whatever. We would like to to pursue that or whatever. So there's some other places as well we're trying to look at. So thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you very much, Lindsay. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, but so I'd just like to ask a little clarification on a couple of points. So what is what comes first when it comes to talking to the property owner to see, if they're actually in favor of having their property designated or not? What are the potential limitations of doing that, or the opportunities of doing that? I mean, is the first thing we do talk to the property owner before we go to too much trouble, creating a plan that then can't go forward and wasting, time, and to avoid appeals, because I don't think appeals are desirable, probably, I would think. And so is the notice of intention to designate, does that come after you talk to the property owner?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't necessarily have to come after. I mean, we as the municipality, we can proceed with the notice of intent. However, it's good practice to definitely speak with the property owners themselves to make sure that they're on board, knowing that they would likely be the individuals to file an objection if they were to object to this process as well. So it's not prescribed specifically in the Ontario Heritage Act that, we must go through this process. However, it's just good due diligence. So that's why we decided, based on the properties that you saw in the listing, if I can go back to it, here it is. So these are the 4 that are currently non-designated and are on this list itself. We've identified 4 at this time to proceed because of what I mentioned before, that there's some research that has been conducted, and we've determined that all 4 of those properties do meet at least 2 of the criteria, as you saw previously in the presentation. And then, so now the next steps, knowing that now that we've given an update to council, if in favor of proceeding with this process, the next step is absolutely to reach out to the property owners individually, have a meeting with them, bring forward all their questions, and hopefully kind of weed out any sort of concern that they may or may not have with beginning this process itself, knowing that there is a bit of a time crunch that we're faced up against.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Manley.
And just to add, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just to add to that, we had talked a little bit about maybe bringing all of them in together as one group or whatever, instead of having to do it 4 times or whatever, just have them come in, and Lindsay said she'd be available for that too, to help us with that or whatever, so, to meet with the property owners.
Go ahead, subsequent.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. It could be interesting trying to get the National Presbyterian Church in a room, because those first 2 churches belong to them. So, but anyway, that's another matter. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see I don't see the places there, see the addresses, but I'm sure there's other valuable or building that we can add after this process is done, or is it an ongoing process? Okay.
Did you go ahead?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely, this is not the end-all by-all list that we have. This is what we currently have, and because they're currently listed, that's where that January 1st deadline does come into play of 2025. Between now and then, if we were to add more properties to the list, because we do feel like there's other properties within our community that would meet the criteria, at least one of them, then from that point forward, when we do add it to the list, they have 2 years to become designated. But the reason why these are, I guess, more of a priority is because they're currently already on a list, and 2025 is that deadline.
Any further questions? I think if you want to get the Presbyterian Church here, we'll just tell them we're thinking about charging taxes on churches. I'm sure they'll show up. I'm kidding, if anybody's listening out there. Okay, no further questions or comments? Thank you, Lindsay. Great presentation. Thank you. Okay, moving on to staff reports. Community Service Department, second intake results for 2024 community grants. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report CS 2024-10, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry approves the following grant under the second intake for the 2024 Community Grant Program. Iris Clark for Dutch King's Day in the amount of $2,000.
Okay, thank you. Ann?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Council knows, the second intake for the community grants closed on February 29th. After the first intake, we had some funding that was still uncommitted. The Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee met on March 4th, and they reviewed the one application that we did receive, and that is for an event. It's called Dutch King's Day. And it just so happens that this year it falls on the exact day of the celebration, which is April 27th. The event is going to be taking place at the Law Heal Center. And the funding that we are proposing still remains within the $25,000 envelope that was approved by council at the budget meeting in early 2024. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ann. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Moving on to the Treasury Department 2023 Statement of Remuneration and Experiences. Councillor Cadell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report number TR 2024-07, 2023, Statement of Remuneration and Expenses for Information Purposes only.
Thank you, Councillor Cadell. Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As per Section 284 of the Municipal Act, the municipality is required to provide an itemized report on the remuneration and expenses paid in the previous year to members of council and members of the local board. These amounts are paid throughout the year in accordance with accounting principles and municipal policies. It should be noted that the township is reimbursed for conferences for the mayor and the deputy mayor, which is why you'll see a total of 0 under registration. And the statement of remuneration and expenses is attached. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing that, none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And we are moving on to Treasury Department 2, 2024 Tax Rate Bylaw 15-2024. Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cadell, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report number TR 2024-06-2024, Tax Rate Bylaw 15-2024, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry adopt Bylaw 15-2024, being a bylaw to adopt the tax rates for the year 2024, and that Bylaw 15-2024 be read first, second, third time and enacted in open council this 11th day of March 2024. That's going to be a joke all those times.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On February 20th, the United Counties of SD&G passed both their tax ratios and tax rates for 2024. These numbers are required to calculate the total tax rate for the Township of North Glengarry. The total amount of property tax required is comprised of the municipal portion, the county's portion, and the education portion. Council approved a total levy of $6.8 million. Based on the United Counties approved tax rates, they will require $7.7 million, and the education rates remain unchanged, resulting in $2.6 million, for a total of $17.1 million tax dollars being raised. Of this amount, 45% is sent to the United Counties, 15% is sent to the province for the education system, and the remaining 40% stays in North Glengarry. The average assessed value for residents in North Glengarry is roughly $245,000, which would result in an increase of just over $119 in taxes annually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Moving on to Public Works Department, RSIP Grant Authority, Roland Massey Crossing. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receives report PW 2024-08, RSIP Grant Authority, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry delegates authority to the Mayor and CAO to enter into contribution agreement with Transport Canada on behalf of the Township of North Glengarry for the Roland Massey Derailment Hazard Mitigation Project.
Thank you, Councillor. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this grant has been a long time coming. It was first applied for in 2021 before I worked here, and it looks like we've finally got a agreement that's being proposed. So this is very good for us because most of our expenditures have already been spent, so it's really just us getting our money back. To be able to enter into the agreement, we need to have the council resolution to give that signing authority to the mayor and CAO. So.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Is that the crossing on the fourth concession?
No.
Where is it?
Roland Massey is just off of Concession 10, County Road 10.
Oh, there. Oh, okay. Yes.
Just comes out at your place, eh? Roland Massey?
That's Massey's.
Oh, that's Matt. Okay, Roland's the next one. Oh, okay. Yep.
And
Okay.
how's the crossing? Like, will what's left over fix it up nicely?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the only remaining work is some minor grading work, but essentially when we saw the brakes put on by the funding people, we figured we won't, as it was minor and not really going to affect it, we put the brakes on until the money came through so we can finish it off.
Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to comment that it's funny that, well, not funny, it's funny that the municipality has to take care of those crossings. And then when we ask VIA or something for help by creating a crossing, or if we can cross at a certain point, like it takes years and years and years. I'm glad we're getting the money back because we're putting a lot of money in these crossings. There's a lot of them. And it's just that taxpayers, they should know that this is what we're responsible for, because to me, like, they used to be much worse like 30 years ago. And then to say that we are responsible if there's a derailment and if we don't fix that crossing, it's kind of, anyways, I just thought it's the funny thing. Yeah.
They got a pretty sweet deal 200 years ago, so. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. None opposed. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Did I miss something? Yeah, sorry. Award of gravel resurfacing tender, Public Works 2024-09. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report number PW 2022-16, award of gravel resurfacing tender, PW 2024-09, and that the Township of North Glengarry authorizes the Mayor and CAO clerk to enter into an agreement with A.L. Blair Construction Limited to purchase 30,000 metric tons of granular M aggregate for $414,000 plus HST.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So these were really encouraging bid results to get. They were actually under what we projected for the budget, which was nice to see, and I like to think it's a reflection that, all the prices are starting to find their equilibrium. So, yeah.
Good news for sure. Questions or comments? When will the gravel go out?
So we would start, they put in their bid that they'd start 30 days after half loads are lifted. So.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tim, is there a way to make sure that the 30,000 tons are delivered? Like, is there way bills? How does it work? Yeah, somebody's looking at that. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's a major operation every spring. So we generally have 2 graders, and we will have the water truck going around that we purchased. Well, it's not the truck; it's the attachment for it last year. So we spray the water. We also do the dust suppressant. It's a very major operation, and both of our, actually I'll really give a shout out to Robbie and Kelly and the teams working under them. They've really started to work together as a team, and this is one of those major operations where we've changed how we do things, and we go from one side of the township to the other. And with no breaks, no swapping the gravel guys between foremen. It's just one smooth operation. So,
and for the weighs, they're weighed at A.L. Blair, or are they weighed at our station, at one of the stations that?
They're weighed at the scale going out, and they give the tickets to the foreman, and we're also able to, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cadell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, there are always in the spring so many complaints after we do the gravel of dust, and are we going to be any better at that this year than last year?
Through Mr. Mayor, so it will definitely help. It looks like we'll have the new roll-off tank operational for this system, which gives us a lot more capacity, which I'm eager to see if that'll make a difference. I do think that we're going to have to get one more roll-off to really be able to tackle it in the same way, but it is always very dependent on weather to see how much rain we get and that sort of stuff. So it's one of the things. We're always going to get some complaints during the day, but I think that it should be a lot better this year, especially with the new equipment.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
This is a bit of an aside, but because we were communicating, can you just please let council and the public know about your plan for the large item pickup communication?
Sure, I won't get the date wrong.
Everyone should know.
So the large item pickup is back, and it's launching on April 3rd, I believe. Yeah, which is the Wednesday. So people, just like normal, be able to book online, pay through there, and then get your large items picked up.
Yeah, there seemed to be a big conversation going on in the Maxville, on Facebook, so maybe we can get some advertising out for that day coming up, so that would be great.
Thanks, yeah.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, and none opposed. Consent agenda, Councillor Cadell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receives the items from the consent agenda for information purposes only.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on items in the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. And moving on to new business, the 2024 Shine a Light campaign. That's me. Oh, sorry. I have it right here. Oh, seriously, I didn't bring my glasses. Oh.
That's back there.
Yeah. Good job, Jacques. I have a motion moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams. Whereas Community Living Glengarry strives to ensure that all people live in a state of dignity, share in all elements of living in the community, and have the opportunity to participate effectively. And whereas since 1953, Community Living Ontario has worked to bring people and the communities together by supporting individuals as they develop their capacity to live, learn, work, and participate in all aspects of living in the community, as well as develop its capacity to welcome and support people who have not always had the same opportunities to participate in community life in meaningful, productive ways. And whereas Community Living Glengarry provides support and services to people with developmental challenges in our area, and whereas during the month of May, Community Living Glengarry is promoting public awareness of the physical and social barriers that keep individuals with developmental challenges from participating in the social, recreational, and economic world around them. Now, therefore, we, the Township of North Glengarry, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Community Living Month and encourage all citizens to become more knowledgeable of people with developmental challenges and to welcome them as equal members of our community. And I'm assuming we'll be doing another flag raising day. Go ahead.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I've been in contact with Danielle, and we will be doing a flag raising on May 1st. We'll also be doing the township in office in blue and green. And there will be also some lawn signs available for residents of Glengarry. So I spoke to Danielle, and she will have some available here for anyone in the office that'd like to put something on their own home. And we may be also offering them here at the office for people to come and get some. So we're very excited to proclaim May again.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. None opposed. And that was Community Living Month. So they're both the same? Shine a light? Same thing? Okay. Okay, notice of motion. Our next regular public meeting of council is Monday, March 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. Question period. Nothing? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We have a closed session business coming up. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for this meeting. It was a quick one, but we'll see you next time. Thank you.